Alright, good evening YouTube. Today I'm going to make a video talking about 3 pre-workout supplements that I really like. But before you click off or anything like that, this video is going to be way different than a lot of the ones that I'm making, or that you'll find, not that I'm making, that you'll find on the internet where people just talk about creatine, caffeine, things like that. You've heard about this 1,000 times. These are supplements that you probably never heard of, you probably never considered, and you probably just overlooked. But the mechanisms by which they work are actually super helpful, and they can actually increase the hypertrophic effect that you can get from your workouts, particularly the first one I'm going to talk about, which leads me into niacin. I'm going to talk about the mechanism of action by which niacin works, but before I do that, I'm going to talk about what I felt anecdotally. So when I took niacin, I think I took about like 500 milligrams or something like that. I just took like one pill. I'll link the exact source I used from Amazon in the description of this video. When I took it, I basically felt an extreme flushing sensation. When I took it, I forgot that I took it, and when I was at the gym, I thought I had an allergic reaction because I was gardening earlier, and I started freaking out, and then I drank a lot of water, and then I was just too lazy to go home and take Benadryl because I just really wanted to work out, and I just pushed through it because I didn't have any difficulty breathing. And then I later realized it was just a niacin, and it was actually a really good sensation. I was like, why does having an allergic reaction feel so good right now? And it was not because it was an allergic reaction, but it's because niacin. But to be honest, the allergic reaction mechanism that I was experiencing is very similar by which how niacin causes the flushing sensation. So now let's go talk about that. Hopefully my audio still transitions over while I'm carrying this camera. So this is what we're going to talk about. So niacin basically is going to bind to the HCAT receptor, which is a type of G protein coupled receptor specified 1092. To quickly run you guys through how the typical signal transduction pathway works is basically some sort of ligand binds to 7TM, which is going to create a conformational change which allows these 3 subunits of the GPCR to exchange GDP for GTP. That is then going to go to adenylate cyclase, which is going to allow ATP to get converted into cyclic AMP. That's going to bind to the regulatory subunit of protein kinase A and release active subunits, which are going to go and do downstream things. In this case, it's going to activate lipase, hormone-sensitive lipase, to be specific. In this pathway, the niacin is acting as a ligand that actually prevents this pathway. It's going to down-regulate all these pathways, which is why I have the minus signs here. So it's actually going to prevent this. So what that's always going to lead to is a downregulation of lysis of triacylglycerides, which is the main source we use for fatty acids when we're not using, glycogen and things like that in our body. And this is also going to downregulate DGA2, diacylglyceride acetyltransferase 2. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, which is going to downregulate triglyceride synthesis. The mechanism by which it does this was pretty unclear in the research article I was reading, but it does this. It's been proven multiple times in vivo in studies on liver cells, in vivo and in vitro on liver cells. It basically prevents reuptake of HDL. It's going to prevent reuptake of HDL, and it's going to prevent the production or the synthesis of LDL, especially VLDL, which is going to be pretty good for your blood markers, especially if you're going to have a poor lipid profile, just because if you just have a bad diet or things like that. Some other things I wanted to talk about. One note is if you're cutting, don't take this, because this is basically going to prevent you from using these fatty acid stores and is going to prevent you from getting shredded and getting cut. So don't take niacin while you're cutting as a pre-workout supplement. Highly recommend you don't do that. Now, we're going to get into how the niacin actually causes vasodilation and that flushing sensation and why it's so good. So here is a little graph I made. Protein lipase C is going to go to this basically this messaging pathway, messenger pathway where I drew these 2 like kind of zigzag things to show the diacylglycerol. It's a fatty acid chain that's bound to P2. I think that stands for phosphoinositol phosphate 2. I'm pretty sure. And I wrote this 4,5 bisphosphate because that means that at the 4th carbon and the 5th carbon there's a phosphate, as well as I think the 2nd or the 1st carbon there's a phosphate. The phosphate connects the diacylglycerol to the PIP2, but when protein phospholipase C cleaves it, it turns from PIP2 into IP3, inositol phosphate 3. Inositol phosphate 3 is going to go to the ER, and it's going to bind to a receptor there that's going to cause release of calcium. In the meantime, at the same time actually, DAG, diacylglycerol, is going to go to protein kinase C and activate that. Protein kinase C is then, in conjunction with the calcium it got as a messenger, is going to go and it's going to positively upregulate phospholipase A2. This is where it gets really important. Phospholipase A2 is really important in arachidonic acid synthesis. It basically does this by turning some of the membrane lipids of the cells into arachidonic acid, which is like a chemical messenger within the body, and it's a substrate for thromboxanes, prostaglandins, things like that. General inflammatory things that are used by the body during an immune response, or like when you get cut and things like that. And so if you're going to upregulate arachidonic acid synthesis through the COX enzymes and then PGG2, that's ultimately going to create prostaglandins, which are going to bind to the EP receptors. Oh yeah, I forgot to add, this whole process is happening in the Langerhans cells of the skin, which is why you feel that flushing sensation in your skin particularly. But I noticed that it actually acted as an ergogenic aid in my muscles. Maybe it's just placebo, but I particularly like it. Anyways, those are going to bind to the EP receptors on smooth muscle and ultimately cause vasodilation, which is what we want. This vasodilation is going to give you pumps. It's ultimately going to make you really red and itchy, but that's not the only reason why you should take, why you should take niacin. So I was just talking about how it upregulates arachidonic acid synthesis. Arachidonic acid, as I said, is really important for general inflammatory responses within the body. Now, if you're going to upregulate the inflammatory response within your body, you are going to cause your body to respond to whatever stresses are there. Now, when you're working out, you want to actually be stressed, right? You want to cause an acute transient period of stress where your body's actually breaking down those myocytes and sarcomeres, and you're inducing stress in your body so that you can actually have adaptations. I remember when huge supplements used to carry arachidonic acid, I considered buying it, but now you don't even have to buy arachidonic acid. You can just buy niacin. It's way cheaper, and you don't have to get the huge supplements or anything like that. So the reason why huge supplements sold arachidonic acid is actually because if you take arachidonic acid, you're going to increase the capacity of inflammation in your body. You basically can like max out the inflammation pathway. The inflammatory response of feeling sore in and of itself has hypertrophic effects, not necessarily related to the mechanosensors in your muscles, where they're going to cause hypertrophy and things like that, the sarcomeres. These are other pathways, such as these are other pathways that are going to contribute to hypertrophy, not necessarily just like the mechanical tension being placed upon the muscle. Sometimes it's just soreness in and of itself can cause hypertrophy. Even sometimes satellite proliferation and things like that, but that's a different video. Anyways, what this means to say is that this is actually good. What this means is that if you take niacin and you have this huge inflammatory response, you're going to feel really sore. This is actually going to allow you to get more bang for your buck, or more out of each workout. So you're going to cause more inflammation in each workout, but you're going to recover from that, and you're going to downstream over and over. If you keep doing this, you're going to accrue more muscle mass using niacin, or if you use arachidonic acid. So I think that's pretty cool. That's something you can get more bang for your buck out of. So that's niacin. Let's go into the second compound, ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is basically an important electron carrier in the electron transport chain in the body. Basically what happens is it takes electrons from complex 1, complex 2, and it carries it complex 3, and that's that. Ultimately, what that whole thing does is just creates a concentration gradient for hydrogen ions or protons to pass through ATP synthase and to churn out ATPs, right? Now, if you're upregulating these electron carriers, right, people also supplement with NAD+. NAD+ is something you can supplement with, but typically they come in injectable forms and things like that. I've never tried NAD+ in the injectable form, so I'm not going to speak on that, but I tried ubiquinol, and I like it. So aside from all the science, on a practical point of view, I really like ubiquinol. Help me recover from each set within my workouts. Like, I feel like I just have better endurance. Not necessarily like in running. I haven't used it for cardio yet, but if I just did one heavy set, and I can go into the next set, and I can go into the next set, and I can go into the next set, I feel like I had a lot more endurance. So that's what I like about ubiquinol. Final supplement, going to speak about this briefly, it's actually glycerol. I'll probably link this exact kind I use. I use 5 grams pre-workout. Now the context in which I'm using it is not the best. How I would actually use it is for probably like sprinting intervals and things like that, especially when it's hot, when you're sweating a lot, or for like a high volume leg day. Reason being is that this glycerol is going to help you hold onto more water. Particularly, it's going to increase your intracellular water holding capacity. And that's what you want. You don't want to look like a water buffalo and have so much water retention. But if you do have water retention, you want it in the muscles, because that's going to keep the muscles hydrated and it's going to let you go on for longer, right? Even like a slight decrease in like there's some studies out there saying like a 1% decrease in 1% decrease in hydration leads to like a 20% decrease in performance. So if you can like mitigate that, especially when you're doing like 2-hour-long workouts, high volume workouts, taking glycerol and some sort of cyclodextrin carb source, maybe honey, and plenty of water and electrolytes is going to help you have more endurance in the gym and things like that, especially for those heavy leg days. So I highly recommend taking 3 of these supplements. You probably never heard of people recommending these 3 supplements. I mean, like, the reason why I'm making this video is because I never heard someone recommend this, but I think these supplements have like extreme utility. They're also like super benign, very few side effects. Like you take them damn near every day. And yeah, I really like them. They improve your general health, and I think you guys should consider it. Anyways, that's about it for the video. Hope you guys can leave a comment. Let me know what you guys thought. If I got anything wrong with the science, let me know. But appreciate you guys' time. Yeah, leave me a comment. Hope you guys have a good evening. Goodbye.